Welcome to our virtual open day, and in particular to the languages session. I'm going to introduce you to the languages team. From Arabic, we have Dr. Suhair Gabsi. From Chinese, Pengqi Chen. From Indonesian, we've got Alistair Welsh. From Spanish, Ramon Lopez Castellano. And my name's Israel. I'm also from the Spanish department. Before we get any further, we should begin with an acknowledgement of country. And Deakin would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands upon which our university campuses are based. The Wada Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, on whose country our Geelong campuses are located. The Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, on whose country our Burwood campus is located. And the Pik Wurrung people of the Maar Nation, on whose country our Warrnambool campus is located. And what we're going to do today is give you a little bit of an overview of the work that's done and the benefits that result from taking a diploma of language. So we'll talk a little bit about course details. We'll give you some examples of student success stories. We'll talk briefly about work integrated learning opportunities. We'll give you some examples of graduate employment outcomes, and later on, we'll also address your questions. Diploma of language is really 4 different diplomas. So we've got the Diploma of Arabic, the Diploma of Chinese, the Diploma of Indonesian, and the Diploma of Spanish. And Alistair, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how we can take a language or a diploma of language at Deakin.
Sure. Thank you, Israel, and welcome everyone. You mentioned the diplomas in each of the languages. Well, that's only one way in which language study can be taken at Deakin. The other way, and arguably the most common way, is students within a bachelor program, typically the Bachelor of Arts or other bachelor degrees that have elective subjects. So you can take as few as 1 unit of language study, or you can take a full major of 8 credit points of language study. So the options are very flexible. We have an increasing number of students studying more than 1 language, so that is also possible. The flexibility is huge. You can study a language at various campuses or online. So there are many options to consider, and some attractive alternatives within the mix.
Thanks so much for that, Alistair. And that leads us very conveniently to the next slide, or the next question, or the next point. And that is, why, in fact, should we study a diploma of Arabic, Chinese, Indonesian, or Spanish? And I think we've all got a little bit of something to say about this. So we'll go around the panel, go around the table, so to speak, and we'll go in alphabetical order, in order of language. So Suhair, could you tell us a little bit about why we would take a diploma of Arabic or another language?
First of all, ahlan wa sahlan, which in Arabic means hello and welcome. With Arabic, Arabic at Deakin goes back a long time, has a long history, almost 30 years. So learning Arabic is extremely important, mainly because Arabic is spoken, first of all, Arabic is spoken in North Africa and the Middle East. And it forms a very important has a critical global importance, and has a broad strategic, economic, and religious and cultural influence. So when you learn Arabic, or when you complete the diploma of Arabic, or while you complete the diploma of Arabic, you will gain the skills. You will gain skills that gives you competitive edge and expand your employment options far beyond Australian shores, to an exciting and challenging positions in the Arab Gulf states, the Middle East, and North Africa, of course. Thank you.
Pengqi, could I ask you why study a diploma of language? Why study a diploma of Chinese?
Sure. Chinese is a very important global language. It's one of the 6 United Nations official languages. And as you know, Chinese is spoken not just in mainland China, but it's spoken in many other countries as either as official language, for example, in Taiwan, Hong Kong, as well as in Singapore. Apart from that, Chinese is also spoken as a very important community language in not just in Asian Pacific countries, but also in North America and many other countries. So there are a huge population in the world with Chinese spoken as either first language or a important community language. With the Chinese language skills, you may find a expanded career opportunities. You can look at to work in a huge range of careers, ranging from government agencies, business, education, and so on and so forth. So that's why we have so many students choose to study Chinese.
Alistair, I wonder if we could invite you to tell us a little bit about why you would take a diploma of Indonesian or language in general.
Certainly, thank you. Well, the diploma in any of the languages can be taken alongside any Deakin degree. So that means your language of choice can support your career aims in any given profession. So we have students from all different faculties and all different degrees taking languages. So it sets them up to work in the field of law, business, commerce, intelligence, IT, a whole range of areas, education, and so on. So whatever field of work you can imagine in terms of professional fields, adding a language is certainly going to be of significant benefit. One of the core advantages that I hear from graduates having done Indonesian is that when they get to the job interview, they say it sets them apart. Their Indonesian major sets them apart from other applicants. And they're actually told that after successfully attaining the job. And these are students who work in various fields, including commerce, government departments, education, policy areas, and so on in government departments, whether it's federal or state government departments. So adding a language can really help give you the edge over your competitors, over your peers. The other thing we see these days, particularly in the Australian professional job market, as a selection criteria, it's a demonstrated ability to work in culturally diverse settings. Our students who graduate with a language major can actually go into the job interview confident they can talk about their knowledge of other cultures and also a different worldview with the ability to look back at the Australian culture itself and Australian society through the lens of another language and cultural perspective. So there are many reasons, apart from, of course, learning the language and being able to speak in another language is really cool and communicatively exciting and really equips students to do international travel and so on. All of those options are available. We know international travel is coming back, and opportunities to study overseas as part of your degree is a reality pre-COVID. And it was a reality, I should say, and is a reality that's coming back soon. So there are opportunities, and really our graduates who do language as a major really come away so much better equipped for the real world.
Thanks so much, Alistair. That's really a fantastic answer to broad question, why study a diploma of language, or why study a diploma of Indonesian? Ramon, I'd like to invite you to tell us a little bit about why you would take a diploma of language, or in particular, a diploma of Spanish.
Well, thank you, Israel, for letting me intervene the last one, because there's nothing else that I can really add, because I think my colleagues have covered very, very well why you would like to add a diploma to your studies from a work perspective, from a kind of employability perspective, and Alistair added the kind of cultural, kind of almost personal perspective. And that is the amazing thing about the diploma of languages, be it Arabic, Chinese, Indonesian, Spanish, is that kind of all-encompassing edge that you are going to add to your CV, and that you're going to add to your personal experiential life CV, which is equally, if not more important. Just think that between the 4 languages here, like we're talking about 40 odd countries, we're talking about 2-point-something billion people that use, live, and share these languages. And you can be a part of those. You can expand your world, and that's the most important thing from my point of view. Again, skills like work skills, employability skills, amazing, but that possibility, that open window that languages give you into different cultures, into different worlds, that way of making your world richer and more fulfilling. That's my point.
All right, so now that we've had a range of different answers to that question, we should touch on the course details and requirements. Now, for the vast majority of students that come to the diploma in particular, we're talking about non-year 12s. And in this case, if you want to look at the entry requirements, think about the particular language diploma that you're interested in studying and follow the URL down the bottom. And let's go into a little bit further detail now with the diploma of Arabic. So here, if you don't mind.
Diploma of Arabic is available at Wood face-to-face, and we offer Arabic online as well through cloud. I mean, the importance of Arabic language is everyone can appreciate that. It's one of the 6 official languages used in the United Nations, and it is the national official language of 25 nations in the Middle East and Africa. So what we use, I mean, a lot of students will ask, I mean, I had a lot of questions about which particular dialect we're using or we teach. We don't teach dialects, we use the Modern Standard Arabic. We teach the Modern Standard Arabic, which is the lingua franca spoken and used in all those 25 Arabic nations. So Arabic is spoken in North Africa as well, and in Middle East. So we have about 220 or more, actually now, more than 221 million native speakers, 450 million total users. So it is also very important, the second most common language spoken in Australia at home. So it's really an emerging strong language. So in the diploma, another question you're probably asking, what are we going to study? So basically, you will learn communication skills in Arabic, and you will develop an understanding of the Arabic culture. So Arabic language and culture, they go hand in hand. And also, you know, you have to understand about how the Arabic language works and so on. We focus on developing the 4 macro skills of speaking, listening, reading, and writing. So that's basically the diploma of Arabic. It has wonderful projections and trajectories in terms of finding work in the Middle East, and it looks really great on the CV.
Thanks so much, Suhair, for that comprehensive breakdown of the diploma of Arabic. Feng Chi, could you tell us a little bit more in detail about the diploma of Chinese?
Sure. Thank you, Israel. Diploma of Chinese at Deakin is available at Burwood, Melbourne campus in a face-to-face mode, and it's also available at Wampons in Geelong. Also, that's a face-to-face mode, and also Chinese is available online for cloud students. As I said previously, Chinese is widely used and spoken in the world. It's one of the global language. At Deakin, the students of Chinese, they can be beginner speakers. That means you don't have to have any Chinese background to take it up. Or Chinese is available for post-VCE students. So if you have done Chinese at VCE level, you can continue to learn Chinese at Deakin, starting from, you don't have to start from the very beginning. You can start from level 2. What we taught for Diploma of Chinese at Deakin, we taught 普通话. That's the official Chinese used not just in mainland China, but also in Taiwan, in Hong Kong, as well as Singapore as official language. Many people know that language, the Chinese has many dialects, including, I think the most, the widely known one is Cantonese. At Deakin, we teach Chinese in 普通话 for both spoken form as well as the written form. We have many students who speak Chinese at home, but they speak dialects, for example, Hakka or Cantonese. They come to Deakin to polish their Chinese proficiency, particularly the 普通话. How do we teach Chinese at Deakin? We, as I said, we have different modes, face-to-face teaching and cloud teaching. In class, we have a range of teaching and learning activities. We don't teach language only. Integrated into language, we also teach Chinese history and culture and society. So you have an opportunity to learn many things related to China, not just China, but Chinese speaking societies or communities. What does a Diploma of Chinese give you or take you to? Well, you have a wide range of opportunities, a very, I would say, a plus to everything. You have career opportunities in government agencies or in industries, in law, in education, and so forth. So that's the Diploma of Chinese.
Alistair, I wonder if I could invite you to tell us a little bit more about the Diploma of Indonesian, please.
Indonesian can be studied on campus at Burwood or Wampons, plus also online. I talked earlier about flexibility. Students can actually shift enrolment in different units across the language major. And I'm sure that's true of all our languages. So flexibility is prominent. Indonesian language itself, it is the national language of Indonesia, which is the largest country in Southeast Asia, obviously one of Australia's closest neighbouring countries, and the 4th most populous nation in the world. Indonesian is a Malay dialect, so it's also used widely throughout Southeast Asia, including neighbouring countries of Timor-Leste, Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, and even in southern Thailand. So Indonesian's a really important language, as actually all of our languages are, for the Australian context. Our graduates really benefit from learning any of our languages, but for me, I see most closely graduates from Indonesian, and I see the benefit from the contact with the Indonesian community here in Australia, plus also travelling to Indonesia, plus also in the job market afterwards. So it's a really enriching experience. And similarly, students who learn Indonesian not only learn the language, but also learn about the history, the culture, modern society, and also Indonesia's place in the world and the region, Southeast Asia, but also gain greater appreciation of Australia's role in the world at the same time.
Ramon, I wonder if I could invite you to tell us a bit more in detail about the Diploma of Spanish, please, or should I say, por favor?
Gracias, Israel. But we do have the face-to-face on-campus, Melbourne, Geelong, and the off-campus, kind of online, more in the cloud. They're both exactly the same. So in terms of contents, etc. So as Alistair said, there's quite a bit of flexibility as well. You don't have to commit to one or the other for your whole duration of your studies. Yeah, Spanish is one of the 6 official languages in the UN, 21 countries across Central, South America, Europe, Spain, and even Western Africa. Close to 500 million native speakers, a big language, lots of people speak it. And I would like to just focus on a couple of things. We do teach the language 6 units, in succession, consecutive units. And, you know, regardless of whether you know some Spanish when you start or you don't, our ideal is to take you to a level of intermediate to high fluency. Depends on how much effort you put on it. So for me personally, it's a huge pleasure when I have students that I have seen, you know, starting in first year and the first class, they were like, hola, you know, no idea whatsoever. And I had this student writing to me in Israel, actually, who's my colleague, the other day in perfect Spanish. You know, he lived in Spain for quite a while. He's back and he's a film director, and it's just incredible stories that fill us with joy and kind of pride. But we also try to immerse you in Spanish in a kind of snippet of the Spanish cultures and societies. When you think about it, 21 countries, we have a huge diversity of cultures and societies, but we do so from a contemporary, engaging point that also has a bit of a political edge sometimes. So, you know, you might end up studying the revolts of some indigenous people in Mexico. We might end up talking about narco state in Mexico. We might end up talking about queer rights in Argentina. We might end up talking about flamenco and Rosalia and cultural appropriation. So again, we try to provide a wide scope of what's going on in the Spanish-speaking world. And yeah, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to mention. That is a great addition to your degree, and it can take you to very, very interesting places, not only in terms of language but also culture.
Thank you so much for that, Ramon. And I wonder if you could also give us a little bit of information about the places this degree can take you in the workforce, so graduate employment outcomes.
Absolutely. Graduate employment outcomes, it's becoming more and more kind of essential that as a graduate student you're equipped with at least one other language, preferably a couple. But it is becoming I'm very glad to see how Australia is moving away from that certain level of, I don't want to sound bad, but certain level of insularity that was suffered in the past. And again, more and more, if you don't have languages, your CV becomes less and less competitive, and that's how it is. I have lived in the past, coming from Europe, which is the done thing, and it is coming here more and more. So definitely adding 1 or 2 languages, or as many as you want, will add this competitive edge. To do what? Well, to pretty much any degree that you're taking. Is going to kind of double or triple your possibilities of getting jobs, not only in Australia, but elsewhere in other countries, other regions of the world. But more specifically, probably when we think about, employment outcomes, we think about diplomacy. That's a very obvious one. You need languages to have a career in diplomacy. Defense, you'd be surprised how important languages are in the whole defense area, even as a teaching person in the defense departments. Security, of course, commerce, of course, we have, like such huge commerce partners or allies, but we're missing here a couple that are also very kind of obvious, but I would like to mention teaching languages at all levels, from primary to schools to tertiary institutions, is a great career outcome.
So that brings us then to some examples or some success stories, some student success stories. So Alistair, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about Mark Orton and the general success pathways for Diploma of Language students.
Sure. Thanks, Israel. Look, we could have picked any number of students in different fields. Marketing have chosen an education student, and I dare say because of the enormous amount of job opportunities in teaching, language teaching in particular. Mark internationalised his undergraduate study. He went on to do a Master of Teaching after that. He spent time in Indonesia, and he actually taught at Australian international schools in Bali, which fitted in with his surfing lifestyle. From there, he went on and taught at the Australian International School in Singapore, again, a place where Malay or Indonesian language is used, and really reaped the benefits of his language study at Deakin. That's just one brief example. We could certainly talk about other graduates working in any number of different professional fields, but there's just one shining example.
And that sort of leads us to the next slide, which is about the work integrated learning opportunities that we have. And I really want to point out the in-country language programs. They're really life-changing experiences, as are the internships. They give you an opportunity to use the language skills that you acquire through or with us at Deakin in a workplace setting or scenario, and definitely connect with the work integrated learning team to seek more information about grants and scholarships. There are a number of schemes available that students would be eligible for. On that note then, if you're joining us as an international student, be sure to check out our information sessions. If you haven't had enough, if you absolutely need more Deakin information in your life, then join the live Q&A session that's coming up next and get your questions answered. And that live Q&A session will be specifically for languages. Explore the resources on this page across the virtual Open Day website. Chat to our experts on web chat at any time. Discover more student stories at deakin.edu.au/artsedstories. And of course, join us on campus at the Open Day in August to experience our facilities, soak up the campus vibe, and talk to experts. Thank you very much for sticking with us today. And thank you once again to Suhir from the Arabic department, Feng Chi from the Chinese department, Alistair from the Indonesian department, and Ramon from the Spanish department. Hopefully they will be taking a central role in your life at Deakin in the coming weeks and coming months. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to the Languages Live Q&A session. I'm Israel Hollas, or Israel Olas. I'm the course director of the Diploma of Languages. And today I'm joined by a couple of wonderful colleagues and also by a student peer. We've got Dr. Feng Chi Chiang from the Chinese department, Dr. Suhir Gabsi from the Arabic department. I'm from the Spanish department, and Kelsey Notting is our student ambassador, and she studied Indonesian. If you'd like to ask a question, please type your question into the Q&A section in the question panel on this page, and we'll do our very best to respond to all your questions during this session. We're very excited to hear what you have to ask. If you have any unanswered questions at the end of the session, our team of experts will be available on web chat all day to assist with any questions, including any specific international student-related admissions or fees queries. At the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you'll notice a yellow Chat Now icon. Please click on this after the session to be connected with our team. And to kick us off, we've got a question that's going to apply to all of our languages. So maybe we'll pass this one around. And the question is this: do you need to have any prior knowledge of how to speak these languages to do one of the diplomas?
Okay, I'll start with Arabic. No, definitely, you don't need any prior knowledge to learn Arabic. We start from scratch, from level 1, and you learn how to read, write, and speak from early stage. So we learn the letters of the alphabet. So practically, you don't need any previous knowledge of the Arabic language. So we start from scratch. You can start from scratch anytime. Yeah, I think it applies to all languages. Yeah, Fancy? Do you want me to say more?
Yeah, no, I think Suhia has answered the question. No, you don't need any previous studies.
Not even a word. And
not even a word. For Chinese, we started from the very, very basic elements, starting from the pronunciation, for example, and from the very basic everyday greetings.
It's one of my favorite aspects of being a language educator. You know, you have somebody that maybe just has one word or two words, no prior contact, experience with the language. And by the end of the first year, you have somebody that's capable of having, you know, a limited, but still a real conversation at the end of the first year. It's really, really gratifying as an educator. All right, we have some more questions. The other one, the next question is somewhat related, I suppose, but it's not about the beginning of the diploma. It's more or less about where you end up at the end of the diploma. So I'll read it out. If I do the diploma, will I be able to converse in that language? Will I be able to speak freely, I guess, naturally in that language?
Yeah, definitely. With Arabic, you will learn communication skills, and you develop an understanding of the Arabic culture and ways of life. I mean, the course of Arabic, for example, doesn't only concentrate on language skills, but also about cultural awareness and so on. So definitely, yeah, by the third year, you'll be able to communicate very well in Arabic. And I must stress, it's modern standard Arabic, not colloquial Arabic, because we have 25 countries and each country speaks its own language or its own dialect. So we are definitely, you'll be definitely gaining an experience in speaking fluently the modern standard Arabic. I must emphasize it.
Thank you, Zuhair. That's a wonderful answer. Thank you. What about Chinese students when they reach the end of the diploma? Are they able to converse and have natural
conversation? Of course, yeah. Actually, we have 3 distinctive levels in terms of Chinese. So it's with other languages, I think. At the end of level 1, for example, you find yourself developing from 0, for example, or very basic to some useful day-to-day conversations. By the end of level 1, you'll be able to discussing things like going to a sport, going to a theater, going to a doctor, renting a house, things like that. By the end towards the end of level 2, you are doing more complex things. For example, you learn how to talk about travel itinerary, how to plan your travel. And towards the end of level 3, I think your Chinese language proficiency is even deeper. And as Zuhair said, at the same time, by the same time you're learning language, you are actually learning the culture attached to this language. In terms of Chinese, you're learning not just the Chinese language, you got to know the various aspects of social life and Chinese history, culture, and etc. So yeah, to be more specific, towards the end of level 3, I'm talking about the Chinese. You are looking at the vocabulary of around 2000, which is for everyday Chinese use is pretty enough. You don't need a huge vocabulary lexicon, but you will learn how to use these vocabularies in different contexts. That makes you able to converse, to communicate in the real situation.
Thank you, Feng Chi, for that comprehensive answer. I have to completely agree. Thank you. I have to completely agree. It's not just the language. That's right. It's a world. It's a window into the cultures that speak that language also, and that comes through also in the Diploma of Spanish, as I'm sure it does in the Diploma of Arabic. And Kelsey, could I ask you your experiences in the Diploma of Indonesian? So do you get that cultural element from the Diploma of Indonesian, which I'm sure you do? It's a trick question.
I did it a bit differently though. I didn't do a Diploma of Indonesian. I did a major in Indonesian as part of the International Studies course. So it was slightly different, but basically the same units, same learning content and everything. And yeah, it does always surprise me. I did just finished my last assessment last week, so I do have a major in Indonesian now, which is really exciting. But yeah, it does surprise me how much I have learned along the way. Like, it doesn't feel like it, but upon reflection, I looked at one of my first assignments that I did in my first unit, and I was thinking, wow, like this is such basic stuff, and you don't realize the progress you make at the time, but you do learn a lot, especially about the culture and everything. Like, most of my units, you learn the language, but related to something cultural, like to do with Indonesian. Like, we did like a Indonesian society through literature, which was really like going through Indonesia's history, and it was language based. So you do definitely learn a lot about the culture as well. It's unavoidable when you're learning a language.
Thank you so much for that, Kelsey. And you're right. What you've shared makes me reflect on how interdisciplinary it can be to study a language. You know, it's not just language, it's also culture. It can be a little bit literature. It can be popular culture. There's a bit of history, geography, sociology. You know, it's such a rich study path and experience, really. So thank you very much for that detail. We've got some more questions, and I promised that we'd get through all of them, and I don't want to make a liar out of myself, so I'll move on to the next one, if that's okay with everyone. We've got a question here. This is particularly for Spanish, but we'll flip it into a more universal question. So the question is, do you teach Spanish from Spain or Spanish from Latin America? I can answer that in particular, but I think that's a really worthwhile question for all of our languages. So what kind of Arabic, what kind of Chinese, what kind of Indonesian, and what kind of Spanish do we teach, I guess is how I'm going to work that question. So I suppose I'll answer the Spanish part. We try to teach the most standard form of Spanish possible. Our staff is really international. We have staff from everywhere. I'm from Chile. One of my colleagues is from Spain, and we have colleagues from all over the Spanish-speaking world or globe. What we do is try and give you those bits of the language that are completely universal or understood everywhere. And then based on your requests and your interests, we can help fill in some more regional or local level gaps, if that makes any sense. I think it's a bit more standardized in terms of Arabic. Is that correct, Sukhir?
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned earlier, we teach the modern standard Arabic. It's impossible to teach, the dialects of 25 countries or more. So I'm from Tunisia, and so I need to speak the Mauritanian Arabic so other people can understand me. So it is the lingua franca used among all Arab countries. It's the language of the media, politicians. It's in some countries it's co-official with other languages like French in North Africa, but it is definitely the language we use, and people, especially in like official settings, like reading the newspapers, as I said, the media and so on. The colloquial Arabic, I mean, we teach sometimes like just to in some of the classes we just show like differences between the modern Arabic and colloquial Arabic, but we don't actually teach colloquial Arabic. So I mean, as I said earlier, stressed that we do teach modern Arabic. So it is the language of the media. We have the other type, which is classical Arabic, which is the language of the Quran. So we don't teach that. So obviously modern Arabic will help you understand the Quran as well, which is actually one of the questions a lot of Muslim students ask. If I learn modern Arabic, will I be able to understand the Quran? Yes, you do. But obviously you need to learn more about Quranic Arabic and so on. It's quite complex with Arabic because it's I don't want to use like technical terms, diglossia, which is really like using language at home. Like you read, like there is a modern standard high variety, which is the modern standard Arabic, and we have the low variety, which is colloquial Arabic. Colloquial Arabic is spoken with in the streets, street vendors and so on. So you learn how to kind of tune in your language when you speak to ordinary people who actually probably don't have a formal education in modern Arabic. So we deal with with all these difficulties and problems when we teach you the modern Arabic and to make you aware of the real life situations and so on. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Zahir. That's a wonderful answer, and I'm glad to hear that you have different contexts as well that you can apply the modern standard Arabic in.
Definitely.
And tune into. Pengqi, I wonder, could you tell us a little bit about what it's like to study Chinese in the Chinese department in terms of, are we talking about Mandarin?
Well, in terms of Mandarin, at Deakin, we teach the standard. That's why we call it Mandarin, not the Chinese, because we're teaching what is called the standard form of Chinese, which is spoken by the greater part of people in not just in China, but in the greater Chinese region, including the mainland China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore. When we talk about the Chinese, people will think about Cantonese. Actually, they are the same in the written form, but they sound totally different, like a foreign language to each other. So that's why we teach Mandarin, the official form in terms of speaking. But with Chinese at Deakin, we also have a bit of exposure to different types of spoken Chinese, like Cantonese, like Shanghaiese, Shanghai dialect. But mostly what we taught, what we're learning is the official style, mostly spoken at northern China, including Beijing. But with modern Chinese, we absorbed many types of many elements from different dialects, like Cantonese, or like Taiwan style of Chinese, Hong Kong style of Chinese. So all these are integrated into our teaching materials.
That's wonderful, Pengqi. Thank you so much for that answer. And Kelsey, when I think of Indonesia, I think it's one of the most linguistically diverse landscapes in the world. So can you tell us a little bit about what you learn at Deakin?
Yeah, so it sometimes is a bit hard because obviously in Indonesia they've got so many different differences in like dialects and everything, depending on what region you're in. So it does chop and change, especially when you're learning it, but there is the basic standard form, so similar to the other languages we offer here. But obviously, you know, in your learning, like I know in so many readings we've had to analyze and things like that, you know, the different like slang words or just like different formats of sentences have popped up because it's inevitable with a language like Indonesian. And, you know, those are the times where you do explore like where that certain phrase is from. And so it is a bit of everything, but you do purely just learn that standard form of Indonesian that can be understood universally in Indonesia, but it is inevitable that you'll have to learn a few different forms of dialects and things like that, like, you know, especially with Malaysia, and like Malay is so close by and like things like that. But yeah, it's pretty good in the way that it can be standardized.
Thank you so much for that, Kelsey. That's fascinating, and I think that's more or less the case for all of us. Then we try and teach the most widely understood, most widely spoken version of the language, and then it seems like we all then don't ignore or exclude the variations, but we sort of make room for them where we can without overwhelming students, I guess. So that relates to another question that we've got, and this question's more specifically about slang. So let's talk a little bit about that. So the question is, by completing a diploma, are you able to learn things like slang in those languages, or is it more focused on standard and more formal conversations? And I guess since we've been talking about it, I'd say at least in the Diploma of Spanish or the Major of Spanish, certainly we try and give you the most universal tools to speak Spanish with anyone from the Spanish-speaking world, but we love the slang and we love the variety and the diversity of slang, whether it's Mexico City, Madrid, or Buenos Aires, Argentina. We will embrace all of it. And if asked, if prompted, if it comes up in a week when we're watching a movie or reading a short story or listening to a song, we'll definitely explore slang options for you. And it's always very fascinating to see what students are interested in expressing as well. So at least in Spanish, it's an open book in that respect. We teach you the basics and we don't ignore the slang, but we also try not to overwhelm students with the diversity of expressions out there. I have a feeling it's going to be similar for the other languages. Zuhir, what about Arabic?
I'm sorry, we're not in Arabic department, not that flexible. Because it's really difficult to choose which dialect, because as I said, you know, we have 25 countries. Each country has its own variety. But we do, obviously, because when the students watch films and Egyptian films and so on, as I said, you know, I always encourage students to tune in their language, to change their language according to their interlocutor. And so that's a skill I want. I mean, not so much in the first and second year, but the third year for sure. We want to prepare the students to the real world, because the real world are people who are actually not educated in modern Arabic. They spoke colloquial Arabic. So most lessons, what we do, we always at the end of the lesson, we always give different vocabulary in colloquial Arabic, just to make them aware that there is a colloquial Arabic spoken in the world and in those particular countries. Students always get a shock actually when they go abroad and they do field work, or you know, they say, oh, you know, the modern Arabic we learned in class quite different to the colloquial Arabic, but well, we try as much as we can to prepare them to that. And as I said, you know, the best way to learn colloquial Arabic is to watch films and listen to music, and these are the ones I always encourage in class. Obviously, I can't teach colloquial Arabic in class because it's, we don't have enough time to teach both varieties. But we certainly encourage it if the students want to learn it and so on. If students ask me what is a colloquial version of this particular word, definitely I will give the answer to that. But as I said, it's not. It's kind of closed book in Arabic department, not so much with Spanish and other languages, I'm sure.
Thanks for hearing. That's a great answer. But I love to hear that you encourage students to explore
we
this.
do.
What about in Chinese,
Definitely.
Feng Qi?
I think Chinese to here is more close to Spanish, Israel.
All right.
In our teaching material, the teaching material of Chinese units at the moment is laid out in the form of dialogues. It's got we have this serial textbook, which is all of our, my colleagues love it because it has some real life like settings with student with the characters going through all these 3 levels, and these characters they have specific settings. When the setting is they are international students learning in the Chinese university. They are good friends, and not just between ourselves, among themselves, but with friends with outside world. So that make it inevitably for them to talk in a colloquial, in the spoken style. And actually, modern Chinese is much less formal than what it was 100 years ago. So that's the language that people use every day. So that I think that's one of the things that makes Chinese learning much easier than what it used to be. Apart from this, Chinese has also 2 units, which is more specific focused on business, because the business world is sometimes is in China is more focused on protocols. In that case, you need a specific way of talking. So that's what these 2 units are focused on. That's the level 3 units. But in general, yes, you have a good chance of pick up Chinese slangs while you're doing. We're not deliberately doing it, but as I said, Chinese becomes much more easier. Modern Chinese. So what you are talking about, what you are learning, is what actually people are using in everyday life.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you, thank you. And Kelsey, is it similar in Indonesian? I think you were telling us, you were giving us a bit of a glimpse into how you come across slang as an Indonesian student, but can you elaborate any further for us?
Yeah, it is very similar to Spanish in the way that we do love exploring the different slang phrases and words. You know, you're bound to come across it in Indonesian at some point. And so we do all really enjoy, I find Indonesian a really fun language to learn in that aspect. But yeah, you're bound to learn it, whether it's intentional or not intentional in the course, it's bound to crop up.
I'm pleased to hear that. Thank you. So back to our questions. We have a very straightforward question here. Is there an interview? This is from Sylvia. Is there an interview process to determine a student's language ability before undertaking the diploma? The answer to that one is yes. If you're not intending on starting at the very beginning or the beginner level, there is a process by which we sort of evaluate where you should begin. It's a fairly informal process. I'm not sure, Zuhir, Feng Qi, if you want to add anything to that. It just involves you contacting the convener of the language that you want to study and
from my experience, students actually who contacted me to see whether to sit for the what we call the placement test are generally those students who are not sure where to fit in, which is are their level, equip them to start from the beginning or middle or the 3rd year, and others they had actually formal education overseas, and they want just to be sure whether the course actually kind of they could get advanced standing for those units or course that they did overseas. Obviously, we do encourage students to come forward and either to sit for the placement test. It's quite informal. You generally sit in you do the test in my office, and just to really to determine, it's not really a punishment, just to determine where you fit in the course. I mean, from my experience, the students really found it useful to them. And actually, this year, one student sat for the test, and he realized that his level is too low to start from level 2, so he started from level 1. So it's a good way to check where you sit in the course. Thank you.
Thanks, Suhir. That's a wonderful answer. So it's definitely not a punishment. It's not formal. It's not excruciating or stressful. It's very informal. And it's really just aimed at making sure that you're in the right place, so that you're not taking on something that's too difficult, or at the same time, not horrifically bored because, you're starting at a level that's too low. We've got a couple more questions, and we're approaching our time deadline. So I'll read them out. This one's a very important question. What careers can students pursue after studying languages? And another very important question, are there opportunities to study abroad in a country where the language you are learning is dominant? So maybe we can really quickly talk about career pathways and career options, and then maybe we can switch to study abroad, if that's okay with everyone.
Okay.
So in terms of career options, obviously we're all here educating. We're educators. We love to be in the classroom, whether at the tertiary level, secondary, or the primary. That is one of the #1 career pathways for a language student, but not really the only one. There are myriad and multiple career pathways available to language students. So
I'll start if you like. With Arabic, it definitely looks great on your CV, that's for sure. Whether with diplomacy, commerce, Department of Defense, to be cultural attaché, social worker, all these jobs, any job like practically you select to do. Lawyer, to be a lawyer as well, and looks really great. You'll see on the door of the law firms, we speak your language, and we speak, especially in a place where Arabic is spoken, dominant language. Definitely, it's a really great plus for you, a great tick if you go for a job interview. That's in Australia I'm talking about, and let alone going to the Middle East, to commerce and so on. And the people in the Middle East, believe me or not, they love people coming from Australia, especially if you say that if they notice that you speak Arabic as well, and especially if you have a formal education in Arabic, that actually speak volumes. And it's to be honest, having a language in your CV, whether Arabic, Chinese, or Spanish, or Indonesian, it looks good on you. It looks good for, opens a lot of doors for you, and you'll be selected, probably be put on the top applicants if you apply for a particular job. And as you know, D can always try to build a bridge between what you're studying and the workforce, and that's what we aim for. And especially this year, the last 10 years, I think, Deakin University, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to build a bridge between what you study and your work, and finding it a particular position and work. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Suhir, for that. That's a really comprehensive answer, and I think all of what Suhir has said is true. Increasingly, languages on your CV makes you stand out more and more to prospective employers. Now, we're awfully close to time, and we want to get back to that idea of studying abroad. And I wonder if we can, in 20, 30 seconds, talk about Deakin's experience in study abroad programs. Kelsey, I think you've been on a study abroad program, so perhaps we could do that with you, or through you, if you don't mind, through your experience.
I'll try to be really quick. So Deakin does have so many opportunities, obviously not with COVID, but next year starting up again 100%. So that's really exciting. So many opportunities to study abroad. I went in my first year, did a 6-week in-country language program, which is very popular if you're studying a language. And basically you are learning the language like every day, except for weekends. And then on weekends, they organize like cultural excursions and things like that for you. So definitely would highly recommend. I learned a lot there because obviously you're speaking the language constantly as well. Yeah.
Can I say something, Israel?
Yeah, please.
We have actually a partnership with Kuwait University at the moment, and 2 students actually been selected to do their paid scholarship in Kuwait at the moment. They're going to Kuwait from September till June next year. So which is really
wonderful
good for
to
them.
hear.
Yeah,
That sounds like an
Wonderful.
excellent opportunity.
Excellent opportunity.
Yeah, Feng Chi, you were going to add?
Well, the typical in-country program, I'm talking about the Chinese Deakin, is a 6-week period of intensive study where students have chance of to study in one of the top Chinese university, which is based in Nanjing, close to just a 1-hour travel from Shanghai. While the students studying there, they have all the opportunities, like what Kesley said. They not just the study on campus, but they have every opportunity to be interactive with the community and to build up their own networks, which I think that's another important aspect for study abroad.
Study abroad is such an important part. If you can and you have the opportunity to go, it is such a life-changing experience for our students. I had the pleasure of joining the Spanish group with one of the trips we took in the past to Peru, where we stayed for 6 weeks, visited Machu Picchu, had daily kind of classroom activities. And the feedback we got, I'm sure, is the same for every single language program. Incredible, life-changing experience that really helped all of the things come together in that student's language journey. All right, so unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you to all of you for joining us. It's really great to see so many of you interested in languages and to receive so many questions. Thank you.